Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock of the Emerald Planet and Emerald Planet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we have a planet of 9 billion people by 2038 and possibly 12 to 13 billion by the end of this century, how are we going to be able to take care of all these people on planet Earth? And that's what Emerald Planet's all about. We come to you looking at the solutions, the best practices from around the globe as we create the Emerald Planet. Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet. We're making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And seeing the long-term impacts of climate change. We're glad to have you. Thank you for being with us.
We're covering the first LEED Platinum city in the world, Washington, D.C., which is the capital of the United States. And it's just amazing the transformation that's going on here as far as moving from not really being that concerned or worrying about the environment, but being very proactive to address climate change and how we're going to address the next 5, 10, 15 generations of youth to come after all of us that are here now. And this is being led by the Honorable Tommy Wells, Esquire. He's a director, Department of Energy and the Environment, DOEE, in Washington, D.C. And we're going to be talking about resilient D.C. But Tommy, just give us a very short thumbnail sketch of the Department of Energy and Environment, and why is it so important, and why are you becoming, in a sense, kind of the poster child of energy and environment around the United States and indeed even abroad?
Well, I appreciate that question because when I first became director, it was the Department of the Environment. Mm-hmm. And I participated in learning about climate change. I went to ancillary meetings at COP21 where the Paris Agreement was done. And it became clear that energy has to be married to environment, mm-hmm. that we had to pull them together. And I had a small energy office at the Department of the Environment and realized that the future of a lot of our work would be related to energy. Mm-hmm. And so I went to the mayor who went through the process to change the name to Department of Energy and Environment. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, Sam, you may know this, that's the fastest growing part of this agency.
Yeah.
When I was there, it was a $135 million agency. Now it's $180 million. All the growth is around energy.
Yeah, and that's gonna happen as we go. And of course, the technologies are improving. What is it? 85% less expensive for solar now. Improvements as far as wind capturing to generate electricity that can be in built environment. So it's amazing. But resilient DC, and looking at this photograph that we have in front of us, this really gives us an idea, Tommy, I think, what a built environment's all about. What are we seeing here? The silent things that we're not talking about that really impacts a built environment.
Well, I believe that we have to be careful, that we should not just focus on buildings. If there's going to be more storms or flooding, we really have to focus as well on people. Mm-hmm. And resiliency means a lot of things. There's many things that happen due to climate, but also resiliency is we don't want people displaced out of the city that because they can't afford to live here for whatever reason. And mm-hmm. they need to be resilient also in the changed environment. But as the city becomes more expensive, we need to recognize resiliency includes people. And that's right. True whether it be terrorist acts or whatever catastrophe that happens. Resiliency is about people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think even the generals in the Pentagon are saying climate change is the number one threat to the United States and to the world. And that's something, when you look at this photograph and you see there's nothing but a sea of people on this asphalt and the buildings on both sides, even though we have the trees and we're about 37% under canopy in Washington, D.C., We still have a long way to go to make this really comfortable. But the mayor is really behind this. What does that actually mean for you and what you're doing, Tommy? And what does it mean for the citizens of Washington, D.C. to have elected officials that really believe we have to take care of the environment?
Well, when Muriel Bowser was first elected mayor, she was challenged with, are you going to help protect the environment? And she said, listen, I believe what's good for the environment is good for the economy. So of course
Mm-hmm.
I am.
Mm-hmm.
And she's never wavered from that, to say these things should not be separated. What's good for the environment is good for our economy.
Mm-hmm.
So the mayor is also very concerned about low income residents and being sure that they're protected when there's floods and long periods of heat. And so we are looking towards trying to build and fund resiliency hubs, areas where people can get into a cool area, and if the power's out, they can have their phones and their medicines cooled and phones recharged. So having the mayor embrace this, it's also about transparent data, so everybody
Mm-hmm.
can look at the data that we're gathering so that they can make decisions, they can help the city. That's why we're the first LEED Platinum city in the world. It's not just the investments we've made, but it has a lot to do with our data and our plans and our transparency.
Yeah. And also, too, Tommy, I think the way that you're involving the citizenry, and we're going to get into that as far as equality across all citizens, but this pathway is towards a carbon free DC. Is that just hyperbole or is that actually possible?
Every jurisdiction in the country has to do a 5-year plan of what's going to be their energy needs in 5 years and where are they going to get it. We took our comprehensive energy plan and turned it into a roadmap of how do we get to net zero by 2050 and half net zero by 2032.
Mm-hmm.
So carbon-free DC, we have a roadmap, and we know things are going to change. There's going to be inventions, as you've noted. The solar panels are so much cheaper and more efficient. There's things that will happen to help us get there, but you've got to have a roadmap. And our comprehensive energy plan is measured by greenhouse gas reduction, not by how much energy you need.
Mm-hmm. That's a very smart way of putting it. I know you've been at this for a while, but looking at the next steps and where are we going 2025, 2030, 2050 in all of this?
Well, we're going to reimagine and retrofit the built environment. That windows are going to have to be high performance windows so that you don't heat up like the inside of a car, but you can balance temperature. We're going to have to retrofit our buildings, move more towards air source heat pumps. We have to create more really harvesting heat from other areas, whether it be back of computer services or servers or off the subway lines. You need to harvest heat for hot days instead of just burning fossil fuel, and then utilize the sun in order to cool you. Now, how you do that is that we plan to have 10% of the energy that's used by the whole city be generated by solar within the city by 2035. And so that'll be renewable. So the last thing is you have to have buildings use less energy. And buildings that use less energy, that interact better with the outdoors, harvest other sources of energy, are more livable, they're more resilient, they're nicer to be in. And so we're on course to do that.
Yeah, as the old saying goes, the very best kilowatt is the one you don't have to use. And I think that's actually where you're going. Vision for 2050, I think we've covered that pretty well. But what are you adding into that mix that maybe the citizens here, but also the citizens around the United States and abroad that will be seeing this are not really aware of how DC is leading the way?
So the first thing is, how do we fund the retrofits? We created a green bank that's funded by the city to take high risk loans when it's related to energy. We, as you said, we have a sustainable energy utility. That utility, all they do is save that kilowatt from being spent, and that's like creating kilowatt. And then we're the first city in America to pass building energy performance standards. we have these carrots and these incentives, but now using the Energy Star and benchmarking our buildings, they're going to have to meet our building energy performance standards. And New York City did it shortly after us, and it's being looked at across the nation that, and it's through direct government regulation, you are going to have to meet the Energy Star standard or there will be a large fine. But we're going to help you do it. We're going to do energy audits. We'll do prescription ways of how to meet that if you want. Seattle's done something similar with their energy audits. But we're the first to do building energy performance standards. And that's where the government is saying, we're going to meet these goals by deadline.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw this back in again, that you have the stormwater retention credits, which is like the carbon credits. And I think Washington, D.C. is just being very innovative. And I think it's just marvelous what you're doing. Looking at combining all these together to make this happen, how are you doing that? Because you're weaving, everything: housing, health, transportation, opportunity, tools, requirements, innovation. All this is embedded in here. How do you manage all of that?
Well, we work with our sister agency partners. When the Department of Housing is willing to retrofit their buildings, then we help fund that and then say, hey, while we're there, let's put a new roof on that will last 20 years, and then let's cover it with solar. And so it's really through these partnerships, and we provide the funding, and we get the funds through surcharges on energy from the ratepayers. And we get it from compliance payments. If you can't get the solar you're required to have, you have to provide us a compliance payment. So we have creative ways to take funds that are not taxes, but it's based on energy use, water use, impervious area surface, and you know how that works together.
Right.
And so it is kind of a cloth that we weave together, and it does work together. So yes, we have a lot of expectations and benefits to any building homeowner that wants to retrofit their yards, maybe add solar, use less energy, weatherize, all these things. And now we won't need to get into it now, but as you may know, we've created the 3rd Office of Urban Agriculture for any city in America. And so now pretty soon we're going to be offering victory gardens to go with everything else.
And I think that's very wise, because, again, that's adding more as far as a green sump is concerned, and helping to draw down carbon from the air, which actually long term is really going to cool it. Looking at the neighborhoods, I mean, we really do live in a built environment. I'm blessed to be in single detached home area. A lot of people are not. So how do we take these buildings and turn them into something that actually is using less energy, but also emitting less greenhouse gases, and actually trying to help cool the environment and not just heat it?
It's a great question. As you may know, DC has added more green roofs over the past 5 years than any other city in the country. We have major incentives for putting green roofs because they not only capture stormwater and then filter stormwater, they also cool the buildings. So by adding green roofs, and then we require, anytime you rebuild a building over 50%, renovate or build a new building, you have to capture a certain amount of stormwater around your building. And they do that by putting, large, low impact development, best management practice plantings around the buildings. And that cools things. It all works together. And then we're going to have to be very innovative of how where we find energy. We have 2 buildings now in the District of Columbia that uses geothermal to heat their buildings off the sewer pipe that goes by their building. And so we can do more and really think more about how to do this. And so we're going to have to be careful. As we know, and as you've seen in the city, we built a lot of buildings that have just glass walls where the windows don't open. We're going to have to open windows again. We're going to have to harvest the energy from the environment to help our buildings breathe and to be healthy.
Thank you for being with us, Tommy Wells, as we create the Emerald Planet.